Welcome to Bicycle Retail Radio, presented by the National Bicycle Dealers Association. This is where bicycle retailers, industry innovators, and advocates come together for real conversations about what's happening right now in bike retail, from cargo bikes to carbon fiber. Each episode explores the challenges you're facing, the opportunities ahead, and the people driving our industry forward. We go beyond the surface to uncover practical strategies, fresh perspectives, and authentic stories from shop owners who've been where you are. Whether you're navigating staffing challenges, adapting to market shifts, or looking for your next breakthrough idea, this is your community. Since 1946, the NBDA has been in the trenches with specialty bicycle retailers, providing education, advocacy, and connection when you need it most. Want to be a part of this community? Learn more about NBDA membership at nbda.com.
Let's be honest, running a bike shop is a lot of work. Between inventory, service orders, and online sales, there's a lot to manage. That's why this episode of Bicycle Retail Radio is proudly sponsored by Lightspeed. Lightspeed powers modern retailers with advanced inventory tracking, built-in work orders, and seamless e-commerce. You can even source products right from inside your POS. If you're serious about growing your bike retail business, visit lightspeedhq.com. That's lightspeedhq.com.
Welcome back to Bicycle Retail Radio. I'm Heather Mason, NBDA Executive Director. This is our monthly news hour powered by Human Powered Solutions, where together we break down what's happening right now in the bicycle and e-mobility industry. Human Powered Solutions, if you have not heard of them, they are one of the most trusted consulting firms in our space. They work at the forefront of bicycle and e-mobility technology. They work in supply chain strategy and market intelligence. Their team has decades of experience shaping products, policies, and innovations that define our industry, and the NBDA is thankful to have them as our partner. Today's conversation, this podcast monthly, is one that every retailer, supplier, and industry leader should be paying attention to. We dive into the biggest challenges and opportunities that impact bicycle retail. We talk about emerging technologies, shifting consumer behavior, policy change, market trends. It's all here. And all the insight, it comes directly from the Human Powered Solutions Bicycle Business Reporter, which is their must-read monthly industry report. So if you're not already scheduled, you can get this free resource in your inbox going to humanpoweredsolutions.com. Really easy to sign up, and we'll link to that in the show notes. Jay, Fred, Mike, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah, lots to get into this month. The April Business Reporter was jam-packed. So as we dive into the newsletter, we'll get through, I think there's 12 or so articles in there. But I want to start out with your top thoughts. Before we dive into the newsletter, what's on your mind that the industry should be thinking about? It's late April 2026 as we're taping. I'd say the world is still in this, global crisis. We have no idea what's happening. And we are also hearing reports of the industry coming together at Sea Otter and having a great time. So from where you're sitting, just maybe some of your thoughts on what's on your mind that we should be thinking about. We'll hear from all of you. I don't know who wants to jump in first. Maybe Fred, you want to jump in?
Sure, why not? So there's the things that you can control and the things you can't, and it seems like much of the chaos or change we can't control. We can only react. But the one thing we can control, and it's actually on our agenda, and it may actually be achievable, is a federal regulation for e-bikes that restricts out of class products in some way. I would hate to see this wonderful category ruined by well-intentioned but bad legislation, as has been occurring in certain states. Um, and so I think that is top of mind for me. And one thought I had was terminology. You know, as you guys know, I'm both a motorcyclist and a bicyclist, and we've referred to e-bikes and then kind of created a name called e-moto. Well, those are electric motorcycles, and in the light of legislation and a legislative bodies and public, would it be, I'm not going to change the use of a word here, but I would just refer to e-motors as electric motorcycles to clearly differentiate between bicycles and these that are not bicycles, they're motorcycles. And maybe that would clarify in people's minds what we're actually talking about, because you start talking class one, two, three, modifications, all that stuff, people tend to gloss over. I think that's kind of insider talk. If it doesn't meet the one, two, or arguably three class structure, it's an electric motorcycle.
I like that, Fred. I just came off a webinar focused on Canadian advocacy, and it was around e-mobility, battery safety, not so much the terminology that you're referring to, because I feel like Canada is kind of like maybe a step behind the States here. They are dealing with the e-moto, e-bike, situation as we are here in the States, but they're more so still struggling with battery safety and recycling. And part of this webinar was just about the inconsistency of information, and then we're not all on the same page, and it just the terminology makes it super confusing. So I could not agree with you more. If we could just simplify this down and understand that e-moto is an electric motorcycle, perhaps that would help us further along our advocacy efforts here in the States. So good topic to bring up, Fred. See, this is why I started with Fred, just laying it right out on the table, turning up the heat right away. I don't know, Mike, what do you have for us?
Um, you mentioned Seattle a moment ago.
Yeah.
I was there. I had the opportunity to go this year. I was obviously it's become the de facto trade show for our industry in the absence of Interbike. And it was astounding. It was just breathtaking. In my advanced years, I wasn't able to get around as well as I wish I could have because of the rather challenging terrain. But nevertheless, it was very interesting, a lot of fun. It was great to see a vibrant industry, and I was struck more than anything by the preponderance of e-bikes. I mean, obviously, this is a bike expo, and it's open to consumers, and a lot of industry representatives were there. There were hundreds of trade show booths for various suppliers and whatnot. And it was just mind-boggling, and to walk around and see. And I'm not a statistician, but just the impression that I had coming away from Seattle was is that. Perhaps as many as two out of three, or maybe three out of four bikes rolling around Seattle were electric.
Mm.
And I'm going like, oh my God, what have we created? I was there at the beginning. I started in '97 in e-bikes, and it was a concept at the time, and it wasn't supported by technology yet. It was, people would say, what's an electric bike? Electric bike in and of itself as a terminology sounds like it's an oxymoron. Bikes are human powered solution. But my point is at one point it was kind of like, what have we done? From a very positive sense.
Mm.
I mean, it's to see this category that was nothing 30 years ago now being perhaps the most significant element of our industry. was astounding. And I'm very pleased at that. But on the other hand, as Fred points out, it's in danger. I'm in a panic mode. I know you've got a question coming up relative to the whole e-moto situation and what can dealers do to try to mitigate all of the negative publicity that we're getting relative to these things. It's scary that the fact that the ongoing success of this category may be in danger because of what's transpiring, and we need to be very proactive, very aggressive in terms of attempting to address it in a proactive and positive sense, so that we emphasize the benefit, the goodness that our products carry to the marketplace, as opposed to the danger that everybody seems to be freaking out about. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
what I would say.
Yeah, Mike, I didn't know you were at Sea Otter. I'm really glad to hear that you were there. And yeah, as we continue to see the CABDA shows, Sea Otters, the summit, Bentonville Bike Fest, more and more e-mobility products, e-mobility days, even at the shows. So we want to keep this category close and secure
Amen.
and continue to grow. Um,
Amen.
Jay, why don't you share kind of what's on your top of your mind right now? I'm sure there's a lot, right? Always.
Well, there's a lot, but I think we could, from the standpoint of just, putting in a couple of words, is change and transition.
Hmm.
Um, I think what came out of this newsletter, and also what's been written by observers like Frothingham, the senior editor at Bicycle Retailer and Industry News, Scott Montgomery, writing for Bike Europe, is we are in the midst of a change, which includes the e-bike that Mike mentioned, and the way in which we sell and who the brands are. As I said in the newsletter, we'll discuss later, one of the most, I guess, interesting or telling things that came out of the Sea Otter event to me that was written about is Trek was not there. I'll let that sink in. Trek was not there. What does that mean? Well, what was there were whole new names,
Mm-hmm.
Chinese brands primarily, but what Mike saw, I'm looking at my list here, Amflow, Avenix, XLab. XLab is Phoenix. I visited Phoenix for the first time in 1983 when China was just emerging from the Mao era. And Westerners were just able to come into the country. Phoenix is significant because that is one of the, I think, two state-owned bicycle companies owned by the Chinese government, the PRC. It was described to me, Bob Markovicius was just there. Bob said it's a mile square. And the reason it's significant is when I went in 1983, it's the same now when Bob went in several weeks ago. Within that mile square, that Phoenix manufacturing facility for bicycles and e-bikes makes everything.
Mm.
Tires, tubes, rims, spokes, nipples, every nut and bolt and item that goes into the product, including the electric product and the lithium-ion batteries, are produced by Phoenix. And that, folks, is XLab that's in the United States market at this point.
Yeah.
And they're focusing on bicycle dealers. They've realized that D2C, going direct to consumer, is waning. So I see right now what we're going through and what we're moving into this year is an era of change, and that change has got a great deal of transition associated with it.
Yeah, I like that. And I do have some questions based on the reporter on Sea Otter and Frothingham's article. So we'll get to that in just a little bit. But I'm hearing the same thing. I'm hearing from retailers, Amflow. These different brand names are brands that retailers seem to be interested in and taking a like to. And maybe that's some of this new energy that we're seeing. So we'll get into that. Let's dive into the reporter. The first article, actually titled Purchase Manager Outlook Indicates Slight Growth in Market Confidence. This is a Bike Europe article, and it actually has some quotes from John Burke, from Trek Bicycle CEO at the BLC, as well as Phoebe Liu from Giant Bicycles. Really, in this article, we're talking about seeing mixed signals. Inventory maybe is improving slightly, but overall sentiment is still weak and unclear. And Human Powered Solutions, your analysis points to a lack of global data alignment and communication being a major issue. What do we need to know about what's happening with the outlook and market confidence, maybe for retailers when it comes to inventory planning and cash flow? If like our global leaders don't know what's happening, I mean, how are we supposed to know? So anything you could share there?
Well, and I think that it starts with, to me, the business planning of specialty bike retailers. It's what you at NBDA and through the P2 groups have been hammering into dealers for several years now, and that is develop your plan, work your plan, make sure that you review that plan frequently. And we've advocated if you need to in very turbulent times, do it every 2 weeks or weekly, and share it with the staff. Make sure the staff on a daily basis is part of a scrum where you get together with your staff and we talk about what we're going to do today. What's the product we're going to focus on? What's the service we're going to focus on? How are we going to focus on consumers? And I think we're dealing with a changing consumer environment. It's changing before our eyes and under our feet. And I think with that, bike shops are in absolutely the best position, absent the fact that we're dealing with a global industry that I view at this point is not having its act together yet.
Mm-hmm.
So that dealers have got the ability to talk to consumers, find out who their market is, reach out into that community, help frame that community, and learn more about it. But above all, be the authoritative source for knowledge and also product and services. So
Yeah.
I think part of the answer that I'll keep repeating through today, through this podcast, is the importance of what the dealer is doing, and then that dealer being a part of the NBDA. If they're not a member, join. Become a part of the NBDA community, which includes suppliers, which includes the service organizations, and the means by which we can look at, discuss on a monthly basis what's changing. Because we don't just go out and say once a year or at one conference. We analyze and we talk weekly, but we also talk to the dealers that are part of the association at
Yeah.
least on a monthly basis and bring them up to speed.
Yeah. And you know what? I think the BLC is a great conference, and I would have been there had it not conflicted with our event. It's hard for me to see like CEOs of major companies there, but to not have retailers in the room to have the conversation too. Because what I think we are missing is this communication share, better data share, so we can learn from each other how to do business better. And there's all these question marks because we're not communicating. But it's what we're trying to do at the Retailer Summit event, where we're putting retailers and suppliers at the same tables so we can say, let's open this up and talk about this right now so we can find a clear path forward.
Absolutely.
I really want to see this uncertainty go away so we as an industry can make better informed decisions. So there's a lot there. The second article in the news reporter really focused on small business and just this economic uncertainty that we're having, that it makes it very challenging for small businesses. And bicycle retailers, the majority, are small businesses. So back, Jay, as you said earlier, the best thing for the small business, the specialty bicycle retailer, to do is have a plan in place, share your budget, really understand your finances. Fred, anything else that you would suggest? This economic uncertainty from the National Small Business Association is really pointing in this article that you've covered here that we're facing increased costs and consumers aren't spending, so it's a scary time. So anything else you would suggest to small specialty bicycle retailers during this time?
Well, the national trends are not good, reflected by many articles in this newsletter and the ongoing trends that we've been monitoring for a while now. But I guess I repeat myself on this. A small business like a bike shop has a local and regional market, not national. So if you can, as Jay suggests, build a plan use the national trends to inform your thinking and your planning, but you need to analyze your local market conditions, your local cycling trends, what's going on with jobs in your market. And that's one of the advantages of being small is that you're flexible potentially more so than a huge corporation. If you're, Shimano or Trek, I don't know that you have the same flexibility, the ability to turn on a dime, so to speak, that a bike shop might. And so I think just being well informed of your market, because the rest of the industry can crater and you might do fine. But that would be my observation is just, stay local, focus local.
Stay local and focus local. Yeah. You pointed out that this newsletter does have this like tone to it. I mean, the next article we're flowing into is from National Public Radio, and it speaks of loans that are given to businesses and borrowing money. So MCA loans, which are a merchant cash advance loan, and Human Powered Solutions points out that this is like the kiss of death for any business. I'm debt adverse, I'm loan adverse. I tell my retailers in P2, when sales are up and you're making money, take that money and put it in an account so you can pull it out and give to yourself back instead of borrowing from anyone. And my retailers are doing that in P2, and they're like, this works. And I'm like, all right, we're good. But, Jay, Fred, what do we need to know about this article from NPR, the MCA, Merchant Cash Advance? What do retailers need to know here? I mean, I'm sure they're getting the phone calls that we're all getting, borrow money, loan money.
Don't do it.
Don't do it.
It is truly for a small business. The way they work, when you look into it, is just scary as the dickens.
Mhm.
Um, it starts out with the fact that these loans are predicated on you're signing a contract. Now, what they're doing is they're Mike can attest to this. He and I get phone calls about every other day from
I'm
a
3 and 4 a day.
Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
and what we've done is that we've noted over the past weeks that it's a recorded voice. It's done very skillfully. This is obviously a scam, but the loan officer that's talking to you at that point explains that we've looked at your loan application and that our loan application has gone from $90,000 to like $130,000 that we can loan you right away to get out of your problem.
Mhm.
Now, consider a small business that has just been hit with, say, a tariff bill that they didn't expect of $12,000 or $14,000, which is well above what they planned as the FOB for this product and the all-in costs. Uh, and now they've got to come up with the cash, and they may or may not be able to get a loan, depending on what the situation is, which we'll talk about as we get further into the newsletter. But small business loans are preferable. And I would, as we advise in that article, by the way, is call your bank, call anybody you have to, including the Small Business Administration, before you would even consider these people. Because what they do is they get you to sign a contract that says they're going to take money out daily from your account daily, and they control the amount. So it's extremely dangerous. All they want to do is suck all the money out of your account they can, and if you don't survive, they don't care. They just move on. Is again, it's highly toxic. It's predicated on, unfortunately, the state law in Connecticut. And every one of these contracts on a national basis cites the Connecticut law and ties you into the Connecticut law, which allows them to do this. And there's an act in Congress because enough people have complained that hopefully would shut this down. But I would say stay as far away as you can and find any other means that is more controllable and fits into a business plan than dealing with these kinds of loans.
Yeah. Stay away. I agree with you, Jay. Yeah. Fred, anything you were going to add there?
Yeah, it makes all the sense in the world that if you're drowning and someone throws you a lifeline, your instinct is to grab it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't look into it, and when you're actually drowning, you can't look into it very far, but you start pulling on that lifeline, and on the other end is a hooked great white shark. That's what this is. You get desperate, or you think you are, and it's a good option. Apparently, it's a good amount of money, more than you can maybe get on a loan, and you take the chance. But the fine print is scary, and they can shut down your accounts, as is cited in an example in the newsletter, even your personal accounts. If you miss a payment, it's different than loan law because I guess, Jay, you referenced the Connecticut thing, but yeah, it's because they don't structure it as a loan. They structure it as you're selling a percent of your future sales assets. And, so I agree, stay away, um, as much as you can.
Stay
And
away. Yeah.
I would advise the NBDA, if you haven't considered seriously posting something, I'd be happy to help with an article or do a webinar. But I think the membership has to be, these are tough times. These are extremely difficult financial times as we move forward, and it probably will not get better. So anything we can do to advise dealers on what is the route available to them and what they can do. And the SBA is certainly an alternative, as well as the lending institutions in the community.
Yeah, SBA, community lending institutions, and even for many retailers, look at your inventory. It's your ATM. There's money sitting right there. So yes, Jay, thank you. We will look into what we can do to make sure retailers have all the information there. Let's move forward. Mike was saying at the top of the hour just about the importance of the e-bike category, but there is an article from the Associated Press about how electric bikes can be fast and dangerous. And it goes into the story of a 14-year-old who was out riding an e-bike around 25 miles per hour when he unfortunately ran into a woman during her evening walk, left the woman nearly killed. And it just a lot of information about rider injuries and how we can keep people safe. So Mike, I'm just going to bring this one over to you if you don't mind, just to address like the role that specialty bicycle retailers should play in educating customers so we can protect the category. I know we've spoken at this at length and we continue to, but hey, when I'm reading this article from the Associated Press, I think it's always good to have a good reminder. So thoughts, Mike, for our community?
Yeah, first off, let me explain. I dropped off there for a while. I think I mentioned to you guys the weather here is violent.
Yeah.
And we did lose power there for a few minutes, and fortunately it's back now, but there's no guarantee it's going to stay on. So if I drop off again, that's what it is. Yeah, Heather. Ironically, I was driving home from a soccer game yesterday. My grandson plays on a soccer team. He had a soccer game yesterday afternoon, and I was driving home. My daughter was with me, and she's looking at Facebook, and she said, "Oh no!" I said, "What?" She said, "Our neighborhood has a website, or not a website, but a Facebook page." She said a woman is reporting that her young daughter was just run over by a kid on an e-bike and sustained injuries. I mean, this was the park where it happened is across the street from my house. Apparently, a little girl was riding her conventional bike. Somebody came by on an e-bike faster than they should have been going, ran into her and injured her. Fortunately, the injuries weren't serious, basically road rash and bumps and bruises and whatnot. But the point is, there's a growing groundswell perception that e-bikes, all e-bikes are hazardous. And as Fred pointed out, there's a plethora of very negative legislation pending before the state government houses, and this is going to kill us. And as I said earlier, this is a real threat to what is critically or what is seriously the most important category in our industry today. And from an independent retailer standpoint, I will draw the analogy to what we've talked about relative to lithium ion battery safety, and that's the fact that as of right now, our most effective tactic, I guess, to help offset this is education. Bike dealers, number one, obviously, and we've advised this for some time, do not handle these products. Do not buy and sell these products in your stores because not only are they dangerous, they're unregulated. They're unregulated both in terms of product attributes, and they're unregulated in general. They're unregulated in terms of usage. They're causing a humongous black eye for our industry, which is not well deserved. But more importantly, from a retailer standpoint, they're a potential liability generator. And again, right now it's happening at law enforcement. There was another article in Brain this week relative to the fact that another mother has been charged with child endangerment because they apparently purchased an e-moto for their child without any restrictions or supervisions. The kid went off and ran down a Vietnam veteran, an 80-year-old Vietnam veteran. So, my point is number one, don't sell these because they are a potential major headache. They're a business-threatening risk that you would undertake to sell and or service them. But beyond that, help consumers understand the difference between these electric motorcycles. And Fred, I applaud and appreciate your categorization because that's truly what they are. They're electric motorcycles, whether they have pedals or not. If they can go 40, 50 miles an hour, they're electric motorcycles. They're not bikes by the definition of a bike and or e-bike. And people need to understand that. And again, I've recounted this story a couple of times. I was in the doctor's office the other day, and we got to talking about what I did for a living, and I mentioned the fact I'm an engineer in the electric bicycle field, and he berated me. My doctor is hollering at me for developing and promulgating, these hazardous instrumentalities that are flooding the medical profession with injuries and deaths. And he's angry at me, and I'm going like, whoa, whoa, whoa! It's a misnomer. It's a misunderstanding. Electric bikes are perfectly safe when they're used as intended. We're not talking about electric bikes. We're talking about electric motorcycles that are falling into the hands of unqualified riders. That's the issue, and that's what needs to be addressed. So I'm scared to death. I mentioned before I'm in panic mode. And I truly am, because every time I turn around, there's another one of these reports about an e-bike injuring somebody. And we've gone years. E-bikes have been around for 30 years. I was there at the beginning, as I mentioned, and it's not been but the last 12 or 18 months that we've seen this explosion of personal injuries and deaths occurring associated with e-bikes. No, they're not e-bikes. E-bikes have been around a long time, and they haven't generated these kind of problems. Electric motorcycles, unregulated electric motorcycles are causing the problem. So please make your constituent or make your customers aware of the difference. And then the other effective strategy, obviously, that we've been encouraging is reach out to your congressmen, make sure that they understand that this is primarily an issue associated with a misnomer, and B, the lack of regulations for what truly is a motor vehicle that needs to be regulated accordingly.
The Women in the Bicycle Industry Summit is coming to Bentonville, Arkansas on June 11th. Our Weeby Summit is free to attend and value-packed. Expect to connect with peers and mentors, hear diverse perspectives from bike shop owners, brand leaders, and advocates that are shaping the industry. And take some time for you, explore career growth and networking opportunities. Plus, the Weeby Summit coincides with our Retailer Summit Central and Bentonville Bike Fest, giving attendees a full week of events and engagement, and a perfect reason to make the trip. Register now at nbda.com, and we'll see you in Bentonville.
No, I mean, Mike, you're right. I mean, your story about hearing it from your doctor. I had a contractor over at the house this morning, and we're talking about things. And next thing I know, he's sharing about, oh, you work in the bicycle industry? Oh my gosh, this young kid on an e-bike ran into my car and had no insurance, and now my insurance is raising my rates. And I was like, don't blame me. I was like, we're working on it. But it is really a thing, right? It's really
It's proliferating the psyche of our country. It's like, pretty soon e-bikes are going to have the same reputation as handguns. It's like, no, we're not in the business of hurting people. We're in the business of providing an alternative transportation that's clean and safe and fun. But don't confuse us with electric motorcycles that are currently unregulated, falling into the hands of unqualified users.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the next article though, I would maybe say that this maybe is something that's a positive. So in Brain, federal legislation addresses e-moto issue, and the article introduces a Safe Speeds Act as a potential solution. This is interesting because I would see this as a positive step forward in addressing this increased use of unregulated product. So this would call for the CPSC to gather and analyze data from incidents involving e-mobility products and then adopt some clear classification and labeling requirements for devices. This could be important progress, I think. But Human Powered Solutions in your analysis calls from support for small businesses. So maybe Jay, Mike, Fred, let our listeners know what we need to do here and how we can support this.
It's part of this is the information that's been in Brain in several articles about this legislation is contacting local representatives or representatives of dealers that are in the Congress of the United States and their state senators, and also doing what they can to support the League of American Bicyclists and the NBDA and their initiatives. I would point out, Heather, that to the credit of the NBDA, you were one of the first associations contacted by the sponsor. Right. It's unfortunately, this is where the industry, I think, and this goes to part of what Mike was saying. I think there are two things relative to this overall situation. And one is that the industry is still not aligned in how it is dealing with the issue of e-motos and these problems of these emerging accidents. And part of that is that we simply are still uh, not really dealing with the common good, coming to an agreement on the approach. I think we're working on it. I think we need to really begin to accelerate the conversation. But here's a prime example of where the whole of the industry, including bike shops throughout the United States, should be supporting this legislation.
Yeah.
Part of it is it's bipartisan. You notice I pointed out that you've got Democratic and Republican sponsors from really, really large states, California, New York, Pennsylvania. That's a start. But we need to make sure that we understand the clarity of what we're doing here. And part of it is solving the issue that Mike's talking about that's plaguing the industry that right now is being very, it's debilitating. I know that you guys have talked to some retailers in New Jersey and we've seen some movement of product, but other brands are reporting that their dealers, since the New Jersey legislation went in effect that's restricting the sales of bicycles and e-bikes, they have not sold a single product.
Yeah.
We need to, as an industry, understand the importance of the common good. And again, Heather, we'll keep working on that, driving through the year to make it better. But dealers can help because they can, and we can help them by providing the message. But part of what they can do is make sure they go to the supply community and say, "Hey guys, we need to be together here so we can survive, so that we can make this industry grow, so that we can deal with what Mike's talking about, which is let's not kill this great product, the electric bicycle, that is good for." Community, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, they're the not to cut it short. I just don't want to belabor the point.
Yeah.
The other thing that I would point out is that we've got shifting demographics. We've got cohorts of people that we don't fully understand, and youth is part of it. Heather, I know that you're mother to two teenagers.
Yeah.
I believe I'm correct.
Yep.
And I'm a great grandfather to teenage kids or a teenager among my great grandchildren. But the whole of the virtual community that they're part of thinks differently than we do. They react differently. There are, unfortunately, groups that get together online of young people, teenagers that dare each other to do things. And there are things that we as older people kind of look at and say, what? But it has an effect. And I think that the education that we do has to understand that we also have to reach out and ask the influencers to help us and explain to the influencers why this is an important issue they get behind and promote within their community of teenagers. So I'll leave it at that. But I think we've got a change going on here that's affecting this that we need to understand how we bring into the positives that we're talking about.
Yeah. No, I mean, so listeners, Safe Speeds Act, it is bipartisan, as Jay pointed out. It's a good step. The NBDA has been involved. We've been, contacted and working with Dave Min's office in California. So definitely something to pay attention to. We need, again, back to communication, right? Back to communication. And I think the support, as we support each other, we can get more done. Next article I want to touch base on is the tariffs. So tariffs put business in crisis. This is a Wall Street Journal article. Now businesses that have acted as the importers are waiting for a refund. What refunds will come, when they will come, can businesses hold on to wait for these refunds? It's a mess, basically. What do we need to know, Jay, Fred, Mike?
Well, I will start with, and I'll try to make this short, because Heather, you and I spent a whole half hour talking about this
Yeah, we did.
prior to this. The only entities that could apply for tariff refunds are importers of record.
Right.
If they paid a tariff, they could apply to get the tariff back. That is a process that will take a little time, but it's online. People that have reported that they've done it said that it's fairly quick and easy. There are 330,000 entities that are going to have to apply for about $160 billion worth of tariffs, keeping in mind that the government, if they pay, have to pay interest, which is calculated on that payment. And the secondary issue here is that there are some retailers, particularly retailers in our business that we're concerned about, that are wondering how they can get money back. They are going to have to talk to their importers of record, that is, the importers that brought their product into this country. Also, there are consumers that are filing class action suits against retailers who want their money back that they paid within the purchase price of a retail product. There is no precedent law at this point relative to the retail side. The only law that is affecting this is the Court of International Trade, after the Supreme Court decision, ruled that the U.S. government has to pay back the tariffs to the importers of record. So there's billions of dollars involved. This is going to get extremely messy. And from the standpoint of consumers coming to retailers, I think we could look forward to the NBDA getting out what advice it can and providing forums for discussion of this. But essentially, a lot of this will depend on how the courts rule in these class action suits. Costco, there's several of the freight companies, DHL, and FedEx that have been sued. You got Amazon, that's the subject of a class action case. We'll have to see how they shake out, and if there's any law that is pushed forward by courts who are stating that they're representing a class, and then in turn there's more and consumers could be involved. So this boils down to, right now, the only people that can apply for refunds are consumers. There are the importers of record. They are going to decide what they do about money going downstream, keeping in mind that there's going to be new tariffs. All of the tariffs that were struck down by the Supreme Court will, in fact, be replaced by summer. And there will be companies that are going to retain what they get back that they paid out, because they're going to have to pay it out again. Yeah. And they're going to want to have that cash available. So there's a great deal of confusion here. The Human Powered Solutions and NBDA will do our level best to explain and be available to answer questions. But retailers need to understand that they've got to ask their suppliers what the supplier may be thinking about and planning to do. And if consumers approach them, they're going to have to make a decision and discuss their policy as to how are they going to try to deal with this.
Yeah.
I mean, there are different methods, and the NBDA can help with that. The best I can tell you now is Costco, as a big retailer, has said that they will offer discounts to some consumers that have paid within the retail price of their products tariffs, and offer a discount on products going into the future to try to soften that blow.
Soften the blow. Yeah. And listeners, as Jay stated, like Jay and I just met today and spoke for a half hour on this topic, and we'll continue to stay close. Really, at this point, um, again, as Jay said, the refund is for the importer of record, and then it's up to that, association, firm, supplier to decide, what they'll do with those refunds, if anything, because there's additional tariffs coming down the pipeline. So again, I think communication, if you are a retailer, asking your supplier what their intention is, just getting ahead of it, but don't have any expectation of anything coming at this point because there's still a lot of uncertainty. With that, we did thankfully dodge the crushing steel and aluminum tariffs. So some good news there. But as Jay said, we are still looking at the Section 301, and these are going to be rolling out here, what, Jay, in the next 5 months, I think we'll have a better indicator.
Yeah, the hearings that the United States Special Trade Rep are holding on the application of the 301s start tomorrow. It's one day, and then the second hearing will be by May 5. Then they'll take all of the testimony that they've collected, massage it, come back with decisions. But at this point, we're anticipating that a new batch of 301s will be in a place across the board to replace the IEEPAs that were struck down by the Supreme Court by June or July, which means by summer, we're back to where we started before the Supreme Court made its decision.
Yeah, yeah. We'll continue to update our members the best we can. If there's anything specifically you'd like to know, you can always reach out, heather@nbda.com, and I'll do my best to get the information to you. Interesting article that was included in the newsletter from Bloomberg about the Iran war and the petrodollar. Even in your analysis, you're like, sorry for including this article, but we think it's important. And basically, you want readers to know that this war is very different from any other war, since it's disrupted the balance of investors in bonds and foreign investment, U.S. currency. What should we know here, Jay, in simple terms for our listeners?
Two things, price increases and the cost of interest going up. Probably three things. It'll be harder to get loans.
It'll be harder.
What's occurring here is as the article says, back in 1974, Henry Kissinger worked out a deal with the petro producers, but it was all predicated on the fact that the United States would not be a combatant. It centers around petro interests, Saudis, and the folks that pump oil, that drill and pump oil, buying U.S. bonds, treasury bonds. Mm-hmm. Those are being cashed in now because of this war. And so when that occurs, as I say, what dealers have to think about is it's going to be tougher to get a loan. Interest costs will go up, and there will be a gradual, depending on how far this goes, sucking in or pushing in or inability for cash to be available. Because the cash refunds or the money will not be in the bonds and so on. It won't be in the treasury, will not go into the currency, and it's a flow. I put the article in specifically because this has never occurred before, and it does disrupt the balance. It will make it more difficult for a small business to be able to get their hands on investment capital or on loans to give them capital to work with.
Yeah, this war that we're in, or what's happening in the Middle East, like I was just in Nepal, and the tourism, how Nepal heavily relies on tourism, and the lack of people visiting that country right now, and I'm just seeing it trickle down through the generations and the populations. I mean, it's really a sad thing, and it's going to hit us in more ways than we know. So I'm glad to see that article included. Yeah, and we'll continue to monitor that too. Bob Mardavicius was with us in Las Vegas at the NBDA Retailer Summit West. He delivered a really powerful keynote there, and then I know that he did go out to the Taipei show. and delivered that same article. There is an article in here about him in a statement that the cycling industry must deliver to prove its place in sustainable transportation. This is a Bike Europe article, really with Bob calling to the need to speak in one voice and talking about the U.S. getting involved in the World Bicycle Industry Alliance and helping frame a bigger picture or groundwork for the industry, the global industry. And I think your analysis, agrees with Bob that we do need to get this communication better and we need to get aligned better. But what does that actually mean? So if we had to call out to our suppliers who are listening, or our retailers who are listening, or even sales reps, who are driving and like, well, how do I get involved, or what do I do? What would that call to action be?
Well, I think the first thing, and I'd be interested in what Mike and Fred have to say about this as well, is to me, the first thing is, as Bob points out, we lack data.
Mm-hmm.
We could talk about, and this goes, if you've heard me talk about this relative to, we don't know how many e-bikes have been imported into the United States. We start with that. But what Bob is pointing out is we can't supply data from the transportation standpoint. And that is detrimental because when he talks about cycling to the United Nations, they come back to him and point out that, well, how do you compare to the automobile industry? What are you doing? Where's the electric bike we talk about? What does it really mean from the
Mm-hmm.
standpoint of transport in a community? What are you doing in rideshare? Which we've got some data, but again, there's no federally sponsored or industry sponsored initiative. I think what the dealer needs to know is, first of all, we've got an obligation to educate dealers to make sure dealers understand that they talk to reps about why isn't your company more involved in getting the United States both developing the stats programs we need and getting the statistics that are meaningful and interacting within the international community. And I don't care at this point how politically unpopular that may be in some corners, it is detrimental to this industry. And the industry, if we want any kind of future for the bike industry, is going to have to hunker down and simply do the basics. Put the data together, make sure it's good, clean data, put money into collecting the right kind of data. Heather, you and I have had long talks about this, but I think it's something that we do have to put into this whole idea of alignment. What
Mm-hmm.
does industry alignment mean? I think Bob's pointing out it means you better understand the data and the statistics that surround all the aspects of your business. And this to me goes back to the fact in the year 2000, as Fred will well remember, the American bicycle industry made a conscious statement that we were going to promote the sport. And that stood well for 10 or 15 years. It is not doing well now, and we need to change our emphasis and our approach.
Yeah. Mike, Fred, anything you would add there?
Well, just briefly, excuse me, Fred, just briefly. I mean, we've been talking about how important the electric bike segment of our industry has become to the industry. I think that evolution, which came naturally associated with the nature of an electric bicycle, is the fact that, we have evolved from being a sport, recreation, and kids bike or kids toy category into becoming a viable element in the transportation infrastructure, and almost by accident. I mean, obviously the proliferation of cargo bikes and the proliferation of e-bikes that are suitable for multiple riders has really elevated the or has elevated an application of a two-wheeler in terms of that transportation infrastructure. And I think we need to be more proactive in promoting it. As Jay points out, conscientious efforts to promote the sport aspects of our industry are fine, but let's not ignore the fact that we now represent a true transportation alternative, and especially given the increasing awareness of environmental issues and congestion and traffic and all the rest of those things, we need to do a better job of selling what we bring to the table in terms of benefits.
Maybe I'll just throw in a thought here. In the past, it's been really difficult to put together a coalition of like-minded companies in our industry to really push for stats and that sort of sharing of information. And I think part of it was, or maybe all of it, is just competitive nature of our business. Excuse me. If brand A has an advantage, they don't want to share and let brand B know what they're doing.
Mhm.
But maybe there's a plus side to the crisis we're facing now is that maybe even brand A is now a little bit desperate, and maybe statistics are become more important than ever because no one knows what's coming in consumer direct from China. Even if you're Trek Specialized or Giant, you don't know. Maybe you need to know, and maybe this crisis will motivate people to kind of rethink their reluctance to share information.
Yeah. No, thank you. Let's keep it going. Shimano opens 2026 with weak global sales, Bike Europe. I think Jay, I think you said it, and I think it said it in your analysis. As Shimano goes, so goes the bicycle business. Declining profits, weak global demand. Um, Shimano's not teetering on the brink, but it is a signal that we're in a weak year, right, Jay?
Yeah, I think that we started out with uh, too much optimism, and it went through. Let's go through the Taipei show. Let's go through Sea Otter. Let's get through a couple of points. Uh, and the realization at this juncture is abundantly clear that this is not going to be a good year. We're under stress, as I said. Part of this is understanding change and being able to deal with it. But what's accepted generally now is that one of the changes is declining sales, and we have to deal with it. This is all a combination of what's occurring both in the world, but also within the markets and within the shifts in the demographics, and understanding those demographics, and then making sure we've got product that consumer public is looking for, or really wants and needs within the marketplace. I think we need to make as an industry that adjustment. So the what's going on here is the uncertainty is going to have to yield us working at trying to get some answers and give some direction to where we're going so that we can connect with the market and understand it. And downsizing or moving to we won't have big volumes, so we're going to have to adjust, can be done if we all work together, if there's some cooperation, or as we've talked about, alignment. It's much harsher and much more a problem if we don't talk to each other and don't communicate and don't make it clear that we need help. So I think we need to open up the lines of communication to ameliorate this and make it as, I guess, as easy for those of us that are interested in surviving, getting through this, and having an industry that we can work with and get back into competing with down the road.
Yeah, I think you're right. That optimism we started out this year with, and I think almost we're all kind of getting maybe a little bit tired of having to pivot so quickly. And like, it's like, I hear from retailers all the time. I feel like I'm listening to everything and I'm doing everything right, but there's just continued just this like uncertainty and this reactive instead of proactive. Um, so we're doing our best to keep retailers as informed as we can, but unfortunately, it is still just this continuing change and effect, cause and effect, cause and effect, cause and effect. We started our conversation out talking about Sea Otter. Mike, awesome, you were able to be there. Jay, you noted from Steve Frothingham's article, which Steve did a great job, editor in chief at Brain, with this article, that Trek did not have a stand as Sea Otter. That's saying it lightly, but it is a big thing. Sea Otter is like the show. You're not only getting retailers, you're also the brands have access to consumers. So you would think that would be important for Trek to have a stand there. Was it economic based? Was it based on a different decision? I don't know. What do we need to know about this article? What is this generational shift? What do our listeners need to know?
Well, I think the first thing that Mike noted and also Steve noted in his article was AmFlow and Avanex.
Mm-hmm.
And the importance of Avanex. What we're talking about here is something that goes hand in hand with what Mike talked about in responding to the first question, and Fred has touched on. And that is that we are looking at torque, we're looking at speed, we're looking at e-bikes that are really designed with propulsion systems that have been developed for off-road, essentially going out into the off-road environment. And that takes, as we know, different forms. Heather, you were in a part of the world where there weren't bikes, but I bet you if you wish you had an e-bike with a high torque motor.
I was like, how can we get
So,
bikes in Nepal? Yeah, I was like, come on, we got yaks. Let's,
and as Mike saw at Sea Otter, and I've been there, that's the mountain bike world. That's not the road bike world.
Yep.
I think it's simply not the neighborhood transportation bike world either, which has to be taken into account as part of the discussion. So I'm not sure what exactly Trek not being there means, but I am very aware of what is being pointed out by the fact that Avanex is the top brand from the standpoint of that brand is what Sea Otter was all about. What is it? What does it mean? What are we trying to do from the standpoint of the marketplace? And it goes to something that I think we need as an industry to go back to alignment and get behind what Mike is talking about. What do we support? That's the definition of a bicycle. And Heather, you touched on this too. What is a bicycle? Well, right now, that is a bicycle with an electric propulsion system of 750 watts that can achieve a speed that wouldn't exceed 20 miles an hour with a rider of a certain weight. So it includes the bulk of e-bikes in that definition. That's the CPSC definition, the 1512 CFR 16 CFR 1512. Thank you. I spit it out. Point 2, which is the definition section. We as an industry need to align here. We need to make a decision and agree what's a bike and what isn't a bike. And if there's some gray areas that we need to address, we need to address them. But we need to clear this up because we can't continue to have what Michael's talking about. And Mike, you mentioned this plethora of definitions. Fred touched on it too. When we try to explain e-bikes, if you listen to some of this, I mean, it goes on. It's several paragraphs of explaining classes and explaining, well, this goes over 20 miles an hour. I think it's up to us in the industry. It's one of the areas where we need to take responsibility and make a determination as an industry and then go out and just get the legislation we need, federal and state, to make that happen, to make it happen for consumers going forward.
Mm-hmm. Jay, I mean, this newsletter is just packed with, there's a lot in here. There's a lot in here. I've done my best over the last 60 minutes to really get into every article so our listeners are prepared. And you're just really, I'm going to have to ask you to stay close to the NBDA, to Human Powered Solutions. Continue to watch Brain. There's lots of news almost every day unfolding, and we'll do our best to keep everyone praised. Yeah, Fred, from your viewpoint for retailers for the next 30, 60 days, best tip of advice from your side?
Well, I was struck by Steve Frothingham's comment and in his article from Sea Otter, and one that he wrote down was, after all of the problems and issues, we're just going to get on with it. And to me, that's a pretty good philosophy. And so I look at it two ways. I have two brains, both small, but there's a left brain and there's a right brain. Now, the left logical brain would say something like, have a conservative business plan, prepare for additional change, all good things. Now, the right brain, the emotional side, the intuitive side, is trying to excite people about bicycles again in the face of all of this chaos. So, again, pardon me for bringing motorcycles into it again, but I discovered a long time motorcycle, a YouTube guy, influencer, I guess you call it. It's Jixer Bra is the name of his site, and he's completely irresponsible in my mind. He rides these powerful street bikes at 130 miles an hour on public highways, darting in and out of traffic, wheelies, um, and his one of his comments was, "You've got to be spicy." Well, he's a stunt rider and he's a professional and he doesn't get injured that much. When he hits a straightaway, and I look down and he's doing 190 on a public road. It's like, oh my gosh. Well, no hands, lots of wheelies. Who does that remind you of? The kids on out of class e-bikes, electric motorcycles. And so the only reason I bring this up is the one thing that this guy has, Jixer Bra, is he is having the time of his life. He is giggling and making whimsical comments as he darts in and out between cars at these reckless speeds. He's having fun, a lot of fun. And in fact, he had a wreck 5 months ago and he was in the hospital. He broke both legs, both wrists. He's out, he's finally back posting a couple of videos. He can't really straighten his leg very well yet. And he's on this high-powered motorcycle and he pulls up to a light and, oh, this really hurts. This really hurts. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo. He's having fun through the pain, and so my thought is the common theme here, and I've said way too much about this, is one, fun can't be overlooked. Those kids on e-motorcycles or e-bikes are having the time of their lives. I've never seen one of them pop a wheelie on my street, and they do it all the time, who isn't smiling and hooting among his friends. That's what drives our industry. We're not selling bicycles, we're selling fun. That's kind of a cliche. I know I've heard it before. But so that's one thing I would continue to focus on is, oh my gosh, e-bikes, in-class e-bikes are fun. And maybe kids can learn how to wheelie on 20-mile-an-hour in-class e-bikes too, if we can address the problem to get rid of the out-of-class ones. So then one last phrase I came across, the philosopher Alan Watts kind of went down this avenue a little bit. He said, "The universe is not a courtroom, and you are not a defendant, left brain. It's a playground, and you are a dancer." You got to be both. I know, left and right brain, but can we also be a dancer and don't let some of this negativity permeate us too deeply?
I like that. I'm a big Alan Watts fan. Thank you, Fred. Thank you for that. Yeah. Wow. I don't even know where to go now. I'm like deep in thought. Um, Mike, anything you want to just advise our listeners when it comes to e-bikes, e-motos?
No.
Same, same thing.
Go ahead, fun. No, I wanted to tack a footnote onto what Jay said a minute ago, but it's not as enjoyable as what Fred just said.
No.
And that's the fact that one of the other big issues, we all agree there needs to be some common sense brought to the whole regulatory side of it. But I think the other really important thing is that's the fact that we need to do it such that whatever standards are developed and implemented, they're done so uniformly and they're done so preemptively. In other words, back during the Schwinn days, we had to live through a period of time where we were trying to conform to different, dissimilar regulations. New York had a reflective tire requirement, and everybody else was good with reflectors. And it just, from a production standpoint, it just drove the factory crazy. Is this bike going to New York? Does it have to have a reflective sidewall, or can we put reflector? And my point is CPSC was designed to promulgate regulations that encompass the entire nation. And from a product attribute standpoint, that's where we need to be. I mean, distributors and manufacturers cannot deal with a plethora of differing requirements because just from a production standpoint, it's a logistical nightmare. So we need to support the revitalization of the Consumer Product Safety Commission. I know that for the longest time that was a dirty word in the bike industry. CPSC, oh, but we're at a point now where mandatory standards are very important and necessary, and to have one set of requirements. And again, this is from a product attribute standpoint, not necessarily from a usage standpoint, because I realize different municipalities may have different conditions that require different rules of the road. That's all fine and good. But I'm the engineer, and the engineers are responsible for specing the product, and we need to have one regulatory standard against which we spec the product. So um, that would be my hope is that however we do this, we do it such that industry can accommodate it uniformly and efficiently.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, no, I mean, I love these podcasts with you guys. Like, I'm always like taking notes and coming up with ideas. Jay, just before we go, your thoughts just for the next 30 days, retailers, suppliers, industry in general.
Well, I think, again, look at your business plan. Stay in touch with the news media to the extent you can. I recommend, again, for our industry is do the best you can with the news that's available. But look at your plan. Make sure you're following your plan. Know your customers. Work to be the best you can in your community. And I'm with Fred. I think that even if we can agree on any definition of a bicycle, or a retailer says this is the definition of a bicycle, and they can say in the second breath, here's how you can have fun on it. Because Fred, I remember before we had any kind of motors, kids doing wheelies on Stingrays. So I know you could do it without a high-speed motor. So again, we can focus on having fun, but let's provide bicycles for what our community needs.
Yeah.
If I could just add briefly, what it reminds me of also is the skateboard mentality and surfing. When I first was surfing back in the old days, longboards, smoothness, at one with nature, then it evolved. It's all jumps and tricks and flips. Young people, you talk about generational change, that's what we're facing here. I don't do jumps and wheelies, but a lot of the upcoming people do, whether it's skateboards or BMX bikes or whatever they're into. We have to give them what they want.
Yep.
I like it. I like it. We can do it without a motor. It can be done. Yeah, my brother's a trials rider. I mean, he's done some crazy stuff. All right, listeners, that's the newsletter. More importantly, those are the questions behind it. In the times that we're in, it's not about just reading the news, it's understanding what it means for your business, for your decisions, for your future. As always, special thanks to the Human Powered Solutions team for volunteering their time to help us translate policy data and experience into guidance that we can actually use. Remember, if you have not signed up for the Human Powered Solutions Bicycle Business Reporter, it's essential reading. There's a link in our show notes. Go ahead and sign up. The Human Powered Solutions team is also available if you're an industry firm, supplier, someone who wants to look for some consulting. I would highly suggest reaching out. They're very influential and they have decades of experience. If you're not part of the NBDA, please do consider joining. And if you're a retailer, we would love to have you as part of our P2 program. We have over 80 retailers from across North America who take part in that. And these are profitable retailers who are seeing growth in their business in less time that they actually have to work in their business because they're better equipped. So lots of good stuff happening there. We're all in this together. Don't forget that communication piece that Jay has referenced. Jay, Mike, and Fred referenced several times today. Communicate. That's how we all stay best informed. With that, thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate you. And listeners, we'll see you next time. Bye now.
We all know that running a retail business isn't just about selling bikes. It's about efficient operations and great customer experiences. And with Lightspeed, you can stay on top of it all. Manage everything from sales and inventory to work orders, all in one place. Source products directly in your POS and make smarter decisions with powerful reporting. Learn how Lightspeed helps bike retailers work smarter at lightspeedhq.com. That's lightspeedhq.com.
Thanks for spending time with us on Bicycle Retail Radio. If this episode resonated with you, subscribe and share it with another retailer who could use the insight. Join us every week for new conversations and fresh perspectives to keep you ahead of the curve. The NBDA is constantly creating events, webinars, and resources built specifically for bicycle retailers. Check out what's coming up at nbda.com. Shout out to Francis Abbott for today's graphics. Interested in sponsoring an episode or know someone we should talk to? Head to nbda.com. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time.